In this video, we're going to cover the basics of what copyright is and what it isn't. And we're actually going to start with something that it isn't. A lot of people conflate or mix up copyright and attribution. If you've ever heard someone say, "I cited my sources, so I'm not violating copyright," then you know what I'm talking about. Here's the thing. Copyright is a legal standard. It's about your legal right to use a thing. Attribution is an ethical standard. It's about what's the right thing to do. Is giving credit to the person who created this piece of intellectual property the right thing to do? I can do that because it's the right thing to do, and that doesn't actually affect my legal right to use the thing. They're not the same. So that's what copyright isn't. Let's talk about what it is. Copyright answers the question, who has the legal right to make a new copy of a piece of intellectual property, whether it's to sell it or distribute it or publish it or whatever? The details of the answer to that question have changed over the years, but the basic legal framework around copyright is almost as old as the United States itself. So when the Founding Fathers were first considering this question more than 200 years ago, they identified two groups that both had compelling claims to make about why they should have the right to use intellectual property. On the one hand, you had the original creators, the artists, the writers, the thinkers, the musicians, the people who created the intellectual property. See, the Founding Fathers wanted to establish a legal framework that would allow for a culture where intellectual work could happen. They believed that if creators weren't able to profit from their intellectual work, then they would just do something else. So they wanted to protect the creator's right to make money from their work by copying or distributing or selling it. On the other hand, though, they also knew that in our Western culture, new intellectual work usually builds on what came before. We retell stories, we reinterpret music. Romeo and Juliet becomes West Side Story. So at some point, creative works have to be open to everyone so that new culture can be built. And that's the balance that copyright is trying to strike. These two values are in conflict. You can't at the same time give a creator an exclusive right to profit from their work while letting just anyone copy, publish, sell, or distribute that work. So we strike a balance. Copyright says that the original creator has the exclusive right to copy, publish, sell, or distribute the work, but only for a certain amount of time. And once that amount of time has passed, the work passes into what we call the public domain, where anyone can use it. Now, when copyright was first established, this balance favored the public by a lot. The period when the creator had exclusive rights was very short, only 28 years. And even if you consider that lifespans were shorter back then, that's a really short period of time. Over the course of the 20th century, that period of exclusive right was extended, probably not surprisingly. And then in 1976, we had a particularly important extension. Congress said that now that period of exclusive right would be the life of the author plus 50 years, basically saying that not only should the original creator have the right to profit from a piece of intellectual property, but that creator's descendants or estate should be able to profit for a certain amount of time as well. And then in 1998, they extended it still further to the life of the author plus 70 years, and that's the standard we're living under now. Now, I'm just going to speak for myself for a minute here to say that, in my opinion, that balance that the Founding Fathers were seeking has, at this point, skewed too far to one side of the scale. This is one of many years now when nothing new has passed into the public domain in the United States. And in fact, because of those last two extensions, nothing new is going to pass into the public domain in the United States until January of 2019. At this point, almost the entire intellectual output of the 20th century is still locked away and not available for the public to use to create new culture, and I think that's a problem. So, there's another set of factors to consider when we're thinking about how copyright works today in 2015, and that is tied up with the shift to digital content. Now, this is mostly just an excuse to use a cute puppy picture to make a point, but it's important to remember that copyright only matters when you make a copy. And back in the world when all the information was in print, you could actually go weeks without doing anything that would make copyright relevant. With a paper book, you can illustrate the pages, you can write in the margins, you can use the book to build a secret code, you can give it to your sister, you can lend it to your neighbor, you can rip it into chunks and give one chapter to everyone in your study group. And the one thing that you haven't done in any of that is make a copy. The digital world changes everything. Every time you do any of those things with digital texts, you're making a copy. And so all of a sudden, we've gone from going weeks without touching copyright to potentially violating copyright several times a day, maybe without even thinking about it. And that's why it's important that you understand what copyright is. In the next video, we're going to look at some of the things that you can do to legally use the intellectual property created by others in your own work.